Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon Podcast. I am Stephanie Conti, and I am here with the user, Scary Terry?
Yep.
Oh, Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty?
Rick. Scary
So,
Terry.
also known as Savanna Lanausse. Savanna, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad we are back again.
Yes, I'm very glad too. So before we get into the movie, and usually we talk like, what are you watching lately? Oh, I'm watching blah, blah, blah. We usually do that. But this time, no, we're talking about that good old bonchinche. And that good old bonchinche, which if you don't know what bonchinche means, it's like gossip. My family calls it bonchinche. I don't know if any other Puerto Rican or Italian families out there call it bonchinche, because I'm the only person who, like, I don't know any other family that uses the word bonchinche. But what is going on in Hollywood with husbands and wives and the deceit and the lies? What's going on?
I am
We
distraught.
have Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac mugging it up. They're both married to other
That was
people.
weird. Didn't like that.
Like, hey, I mean, it was cute, but if I was their spouse, I'd be killing myself. I mean, at least if I was like with Oscar Isaac and then seeing that video, I'd be like, yeah, no, it's over.
I don't understand. Like, I think it also something similar was Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Where like these
Yeah.
co-stars think they can be all cuddly. It's strange. It makes everybody else uncomfortable. Everybody is uncomfortable.
It wasn't like, oh, they're the handheld for a little bit. Like, no, Oscar Isaac was in her armpit for like a good 2 minutes.
The photos were just extremely intimate. It was very strange. I don't know how Hollywood spouses do it. Like, I don't know. I couldn't.
I don't know either. Like, especially if you kind of have a spouse that is somewhat of a sex symbol or just
Yeah.
overall like has major sex appeal. Cause it's like, dang. Like, I don't, especially like if they get like casted and like, I don't know how Adam Driver's wife does it. I don't know. I don't know how she lives that life, you know?
I know. He's in some scenes. He's in some scenes.
He's in some scenes. He's in Annette. He's in, oh my God. Could you imagine being his wife and then having to see him on Girls?
I really hope they weren't married back then. That's difficult.
I hope, yeah.
That's difficult. That's a difficult
It's just so, I don't know how that happens. I don't know. Like, even if I thought about, oh, if you got this great movie role and you had to like mug it up with a celebrity, I'd be like, well, I really love my boyfriend, so like let's not do that intensely, you know?
I think there's always a way to get out of certain things or like make it lighter. But lately, some of these movies are just going full-fledged. So
And then also it was the fact that like with the whole Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac situation, that Jessica Chastain is like very on TikTok and Twitter, and she was like posted because people are like, oh my God, like he could totally be Gomez and you could be Morticia Adams and like the new movie, blah blah blah. And then they were like just posting like pictures of Gomez and Morticia. It's like, is this your announcement that you're getting a divorce and you're now being with Oscar Isaac? What is this?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's just a little too what is that those type of part it's too swingers. It's too the villages of Central Florida.
I don't know if they do it because they think we like it, but we don't. Who could we talk to this about? Because we don't like it. I don't
Like,
like it.
I would like it if they were single. And
Yeah,
I'd be
that's
like,
fine.
yeah, you know, I'm
The
rooting for them and
singles
stuff
can do
like that.
whatever. The singles can do whatever. If you're married, you cannot.
Yeah, you know, and it's just, interesting. It's just very interesting. And then also you have so many celebrities just really pulling the trigger on divorce, and then they're with someone like 3 weeks later.
It's gross.
And most notably, one of the biggest news that happened like this week as we're recording is with John Mulaney. And I will admit, I never cared for John Mulaney. I always got kind of pick-me vibes from him. And it makes
Really?
sense because now he's with Olivia Munn, who's
Stop.
very, very pick-me vibes.
She is, but I'm disappointed because I was a fan. I really liked him. I watched Big Mouth for a little bit. His stand up is funny. And now it's just, I think you're right. He is very pick me. Dude, how are you going to come out of rehab, right? Fresh out of rehab for like what, the second time for cocaine, right?
And
Announce to the
alcohol.
world,
And alcohol.
announce to the world you're leaving your wife after how many years she's put up with this drug addiction? I believe twice. More than that, probably, right? And
Yeah,
then be like, I'm
probably.
divorcing her. I'm with Olivia Munn and we're having a baby. And then just expect the world to be like, great,
And like
fantastic.
my thing is this is like if because I did hear an argument saying like, "Oh, what if he was like a trigger to drinking?" And if it was like if that was the case, I feel like that should have been said. You don't just slap because she's been claiming like, "I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. I don't know how." Like she's been claiming that she's absolutely heartbroken and has no idea. Now that could be lies, that could be fabricated, whatever. But at the end of the day, if it really was because it was like maybe she was causing him to like drink or something like that, whatever it may be, I feel like they would have said like, oh yeah, this is because it's a amicable separation or some keyword like that. But the fact that she was like, yeah, I don't know why this is happening, and then all of a sudden Olivia Munn is like now pregnant. And the thing is that the timelines don't match up, so it's kind of looking like he cheated on his wife with Olivia Munn, got her pregnant, and then left. Like, come on, that's sloppy.
We know how like far into her pregnancy she is?
She's over 6 months, and keep in mind they just divorced 3 months ago.
That's disgusting. Like that's
Yeah.
that's that's some scummy
Unless she's
stuff.
having twins or triplets, just from how far along she looks at least between 6 and 8 months.
That's scummy. That's really scummy.
Yeah.
It's a scummy thing to do. Um, I
And then because John Mulaney and his bro Pete Davidson are close, there's also rumors that Kaylee Cuoco, who just got a divorce, is now with Pete Davidson.
look, I know we don't know people and I know we don't know what they go through, but at the end of the day, this just doesn't look good. I
Yeah.
think you have to have enough sense to be like, okay, this is going to look very, very bad, especially John Mulaney. Kaylee Cuoco, that's not cool either. But you, I got out
Now a
of rehab.
baby's involved.
You were like in rehab and you divorced your wife. You saw this woman while you were in rehab, most likely.
And
So,
like the thing is too is that like he told his wife that he never wanted kids,
oh, I
and
remember
that was
that.
a compromise that she made. And then all of a sudden, oh no, I'm divorcing you now and I'm having a kid.
That's gross and it's scummy. Like it is just not. I don't
Very,
ever.
very
We
sloppy.
don't support that. We don't support it.
Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the review, because it's on the subject, what is your opinion on the whole Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles situation?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, no? Besides the
I think
rehab and
so,
the
but
and
the
the
thing
baby.
is like now there's like kids involved, like real, like older kids involved, and it just seemed like because she was working on a movie with Harry when the divorce rumors were amid,
I believe she was the director.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like I said, I don't know these people and I don't know the situation, obviously, but just if we're just going about how it looks, it's bad. It's not
The
cool.
the timelines don't look good at all.
No, there was definitely something bad going on. Like maybe cheating, maybe they were separated and she was regardless. I think especially if you have older kids, they're gonna see that. One day they're gonna see it. And it's just not gonna look good.
And I don't understand, like, I just think it's a little bit off because Olivia Wilde is substantially older than Harry.
She is.
And it just I just don't I wouldn't see those personalities mingling. Like it's just a little bit off to me.
I I think celebrities because they're famous and because they have maybe a little bit of power in their field, I feel like a lot of them think they can do whatever they want.
Ooh, dang, I don't know if you heard that. There was a nice little thunder.
You're is it raining by you?
No, not raining, but dang, it was loud. But continue.
No. No, I'm just saying I think because we hold celebrities to such a high view, I guarantee you John Mulaney, Olivia Wilde, Olivia Munn, Kaylee Cuoco, they're all gonna come back from this like better. And people are gonna be forget about this and support them.
For sure.
And that's why I think it's important that we don't forget certain things and we don't hold celebrities to such a high degree because a lot of them are doing some gross stuff and a lot of them are scummy.
Like, and people can make mistakes, but my thing is this, is that with all the people that we've mentioned, everything has been completely public on, and like they have to be aware, like their publicists, their managers have to be aware of the timeline from the moment from the moment the rumors start to when they start going on display. They
Mhm.
got to realize that that's got to seem like, oh, it looks like, even if, like, let's say Olivia Wilde and her husband, her ex-husband, were like separated for a year, it doesn't, like, the timelines don't match up, you know? And if that's the case, then that should be mentioned, because if not, it just portrays them in such a bad light.
I understand everybody's entitled to privacy also. I get it. Like you don't want to tell everybody about your endeavors or your life, but you're going to look a certain way. That's the problem. Like you want privacy, that's fine, but like now I think of you in a different way. And I have obviously these people don't care about like what I think because well, who am I?
Yeah.
But you know, they cry like, oh, you know, blah, 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 blah. You're doing some scummy stuff. Regardless, like John Mulaney has no
Yeah.
excuse. There's nothing you can say unless it comes out that his wife was like beating him, which I highly doubt. There's no excuse to pull that.
Yeah, and it just it's like I said, that mismatch of timeline. It's the fact that, like, with John Mulaney, with the split with Jason Sudeikis, and now the whole Kaylee Cuoco thing. The fact that it's like you just announced a divorce and you're not commenting anything on it. You just announced divorce, like your publicist announced divorce. That's it. And then now, like, less than a month later, in most of these cases, now you're out with someone else. And the thing is, like, even with Olivia Wilde and like Harry Styles, at first people were like, oh no, like maybe they're just friends and stuff. But then, like, a month later, there's like photos of them handhold. And like the thing is, it's like it doesn't look like it's kept a secret, or at least,
Mhm.
like, if that's the case, if you don't want to keep it a secret or anything, like, everyone has social media platforms. Be open about it. Talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if not, I feel like the paparazzi would be even more inclined to see if you did cheat, rather if you just said, "Hey, no, we divorced several months ago. I met him, like about a month ago, blah, blah, blah." And if you clarify that, I feel like it would be a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like people wouldn't be in your business so much, because then you kind of take the illusion out of it. You kind of take the allure of, did so and so cheat? Like, you take it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just feel like those things are just weird, and it's just happening to so many couples in Hollywood.
I think there's just a lot of how do I say this? When you're in the spotlight, I think there's just too much temptation. And that's not like you need to have self-control. But like these people like are getting roles where they just have these elaborate sex scenes and then you're meeting people constantly. And by the way, all these people are like beautiful.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think, Olivia Munn is beautiful. So I think unfortunately there's just if you don't have self-control and that commitment to that person, like you're gonna fall. Especially like he was on drugs and he was like fresh out of like he was in rehab, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think like and also like he just seems like that type of person, unfortunately. I think if you don't have self-control and that commitment, like it's very easy.
Yeah, and I think also, like, I feel like a lot of actors, would sacrifice their boundaries in order for a good movie or a good performance, and I don't agree with that always. I do think, like, obviously if you're single and you're like, "Oh, we have two single actors who are working on this project, whatever, and they want to make the best of it." Yeah, there's that. But the fact that, like, for example, the movie that Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain are in, the scenes from a marriage, it's like, at some point, if you know you are about to be naked in bed with someone else, maybe you got to talk to the director about, because it's just like you can love someone so much, but when you are literally forced to have chemistry with someone, things can happen.
Of course.
You can't control that. You can control your actions, but you can't control if you're forced in a situation where now, let's say, maybe there's a spark between them because of they worked on a film together or they
But
got to
that's
know each other.
I feel like as an actor though, you have to kind of foretell that. That's your craft. That's and these are veteran actors. These are fantastic actors. At some point you have to be like, okay, like this is really intimate. Like, can I do this and walk away?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times people can't.
Yeah, sadly, but it's just it's very interesting, and I wish, and there this is the reason why body doubles exist. There's a reason why, like with cutscenes, like there's a reason why actors don't have actual sex in front of the camera, and that usually the simulated sex scenes are with you know stunt body doubles and things like that, or just things like that of that nature, people who are meant to do those roles. I mean, except Adam Driver, I don't know why he just seems like he is so ready to do everything and everything at once, but like there's a reason why there are those types of roles and everything. But I feel like if you have a director who's really just trying to sell this, and he kind of forms this fake sense of chemistry, or that ends up becoming too realistic, I feel like at that point, it's the responsibility of not only the actors to recognize that, but also the responsibility of the director to kind of pull away from that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like, because if I imagine if I directed scenes from a marriage and this happened between the two actors and stuff, and now all of a sudden these two actors are cheating on their spouses with each other, you gotta admit that there's a sense of, like, if I was the writer or director, like, or especially the director commanding to do all that stuff, there's a sense of guilt. There's got to be a sense of guilt. And so you got to be able to like learn how to dial it back.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're totally right.
Like if I were to create a like a scenes from a marriage type of story and stuff, I would definitely also be cautious of like maybe hiring a therapist or something to speak with the actors regularly, because at the end of the day, you have to think about the psychology of it. If they are forced to fall in love with someone, if their character's forced to fall in love with it, they might think it's real, and you have to have someone to psychologically pull them out of that.
I think every um most movie sets should have a therapist. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not just for that, but like in case, like, let's say someone on the crew is watching a scene and, like, if there's like a rape scene or something being filmed and that's very triggering to a crew member, I feel like that they should have access to a therapist
Oh,
that's on the
yeah.
set to be able to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
That I
Absolutely.
definitely think would be a very good push for Hollywood to do. But alas, let's get into the movie we're talking about today. So
Spooky.
today we are going to be talking. So we're going to kick off our little pre-Halloween adventures by kicking it off with a classic horror film, A Nightmare on Elm Street. So if you don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984. It's about a monstrous spirit of slain child murderer seeks revenge by invading the dreams of teenagers whose parents were responsible for his untimely death. So it is written and directed by legendary horror director, creator Wes Craven. And the main stars are Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp, Robert Englund, John Saxon, Ronnie Blakely, Amanda Weiss, and Jesus Garcia. So, Savannah, what are your thoughts on the OG A Nightmare on Elm Street?
I mean, before watching this, I didn't know it was like a franchise.
Yes.
And then I went on because I watched it on HBO Max and I didn't know there were 8 of them.
Mhm.
I only
Well,
heard of the
they're
1.
never the reason why you don't hear about them is because 'cause they're never as good,
I
you know?
figured. I figured. Um, but the first one is really fun. It's very 80s, very campy. Obviously, now when you watch it, you're just like, okay, like it's very 80s. But for the time, I think they had a lot of technical scenes that were really cool. Um, and I think the whole idea of not being able to escape from your nightmare and like not being able to escape their sleep, because that's how we, I think, as individuals escape from things. You just go to
Yeah.
sleep. Um, it's a very, very cool concept. I think the movie's very fun. So, without any spoilies, I recommend it.
Yeah, I recommend it too. I think it's, like Savannah said, very technically savvy. It's very, very good in terms of the way it was made. And honestly, I will say, I do think Freddy Krueger is one of the most, like, one of the best types of horror characters out there. And I'll get into it later on why I think so. But essentially, I think it's a great movie. I don't personally think it's the best out of best of the best
No,
horror movie out there, but I do think it is such a staple in terms of horror movies, even today.
Mhm.
So let's dive into the acting first. So obviously, this was considered to be a lower budget movie. The acting is a little okay, in my opinion. What did
It's
you think
hard.
about
It
the
was a little
acting?
hard. It was hard, especially, the main girl was okay. Johnny Depp is good. The guy with the leather jacket was not good. And, so I would say it's okay at best. It's a little rough, but it's a I'd compare it to I'm trying to think. It's an 80s movie. So the acting if you look at a lot of, movies from the 80s, the acting is always very caricaturish. There's always the tough guy, there's always the nice schoolgirl, like, it's just very, how do I put it, like, typecasting? Is that what the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much that. They had very cookie cutter characters. I don't know why that took me, like, 5 minutes. Yeah, very, but, I mean, the most important person was fantastic. So that I
Yeah.
think that's what matters in a horror movie especially.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I will say I don't understand why, like, when I look at the main actress who plays Nancy, Heather Langenkamp, I don't understand why. Because when I was reading the list of actors who were being considered for the role, Courtney Cox was considered. You had Demi Moore was even considered for the role of this movie. So I don't know if maybe the choice to go for a more novice actor was due to it for budget reasons or whatever, but I for some reason Heather Langenkamp does not sell it for me compared to all the other, from this time period, female led horrors where it's kind of like you have like this cliche like girl running around the house and she's all alone and someone's chasing her and things like that. I feel like in terms of acting, she's at a little bit of the bottom of the list.
No, I think that's totally fair. She also, in my opinion, she looked a little too young for the role.
And the crazy thing is there's a part in her in the movie where she goes, "Oh my god, I look 20." She was actually 20 years old while filming that movie.
She looked 15.
And I will say one of the things that I did not like cuz I was reading trivia, I really don't like cuz she does look extremely young. How there was like a few years ago it was like a Maxim, like the Maxim magazines. They had like a list of like their hottest, horror actors, and she was number 4, and I thought that was so weird because she literally looks like a child. She's supposed to play a child, first of all, but she looks like a child as well.
That's
So
really
I thought that was
uncomfortable.
very
Yeah, that's
gross.
skeevy. It's skeevy for sure. I do wish she looked a little bit more mature just because her friends looked a lot older than her, and I do feel like it would have benefited if she looked maybe at least 18 years old. Because
Yeah,
it's high
because
school.
everyone else, like, in that little group of friends looked between 17 and 19, where she looked 13.
Yeah, she looked very, I think a little too young.
Yeah. So there was that. Johnny Depp. This was his first ever movie role ever. So his acting was not like how it is today.
It
So
was
he was a little
okay.
bit rough as well. It was cute, but then again, he also wasn't like a real main character. So. And I don't consider, like, even though like they are in a lot of the movie, I don't feel like the movie fixates on Glenn, Johnny Depp's character, or the characters Rod and Tina who are in the beginning of the movie. So I could understand like their acting wasn't as great and stuff. I will say out of all of them, in terms of that group, I do think the girl who played Tina, Amanda Weiss, I thought that she was the strongest actor of the group.
Agreed. Definitely.
Jizu Garcia, who plays Rod, I thought he was just, and it probably was due to writing, but it just felt like that they were trying to make a Grease spinoff character with him,
It
you
was
know?
it was too much. It was too he didn't have to be like I think he was the worst, but I think you're right. I think it's just the character they kind of built around him.
Yeah.
It kind of made him sound dumb. and maybe that's what they were going for, but
And I will say, so this movie came out in 1984. I believe Halloween came out in 1979. I don't know how long it took this movie to make, but it definitely does feel like they took a lot of inspiration from Halloween in terms of the casting decision. But the thing is like even in Halloween, there was like a greaser type, character, who was like, "Hey, come here, mama," things like that. It's like that doesn't need to be in every horror movie.
yeah, I think unfortunately, a lot of those movies during that time did take like Halloween, and I think another big one was Psycho. So I think those two movies really just created a spin-off of other things. Not to say that this is a spin-off, but I think a lot of Halloween or scary movies at the time took Halloween or whatever other successes that were at the time and just
Mhm.
grabbed from it.
Yeah.
And we saw that well into the 90s.
For sure. Absolutely. But I will say the best acting done out in this movie is by Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger. And
Oh yeah.
I believe because I was looking up information. So one of the best decisions that I think this movie made was because usually when you have these horror type characters, usually stunt actors are hired because they don't make them do a lot of talking and things like that. I think the reason why Freddy Krueger is one of the best horror movie characters out there is because he is genuinely terrifying because the actor sells it because they went with an actor who knew how to sell that character.
I really think he's probably one of the first ones to do something like that because if you look at Jason or Michael Myers, they don't talk, they don't do anything. So this is like the first character we had that was very much a participant in the film. He talked, he did a bunch of crazy stuff. Um, but I think that's kind of the best thing they could have done because if he was like a mute character or if you only saw him like his hand or like you know what I mean? I think it
Hmm.
really would have dulled down the film because that's
Yeah.
really what makes the movie.
Yeah. And he makes all of the movies. Like all of the movies are actually good because of him. He continually like delivers even though oh sorry, my alarm's going off. What time is
Okay.
it? Okay.
11.
It's 11. So, I think honestly, like he just does a great job. And I think that's why they were able to make so many movies just based off that character. Is not because necessarily the main characters or anything, because I feel like with the Halloween series, everyone loved Jamie Lee Curtis. So they wanted her to be in more movies. But I think with this one, it's solely based on the fact that they had more movies because of Robert Englund.
I think also the character has a very strong backstory, which we don't really see. Like a lot of the times we just see for Halloween example, oh, like he was born like a psychopath. But this one had a really, really cool backstory about him being like a child murderer and how everybody just decided to light him on fire one day. And now he's back. I think that was really cool.
Well, and then there's also, so I don't know if you are aware. Did you ever see the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Briefly, when I was a teenager, but I
So
don't
the
know.
remake has the original backstory. Originally, Freddy Krueger was not supposed to be a child murderer. Freddy Krueger is a child molester,
Well, okay, that makes
which
sense.
is still arguably as scary. It's still scary and maybe in some senses a little bit scarier than just an average murderer, if that makes any sense. But I really think for um that they didn't want to use that background because it caused a lot of complications and stuff like that when it came to actually filming and like oh the ratings at the time weren't as great. But I think it's pretty interesting that that's what because at least now, like for example, all of these other types of like horror characters have very sad backgrounds. Like, oh, his mommy drowned him, or something like that,
Yeah, I
Whereas this guy is like just coherent, like he is just evil. He is just
but
absolutely
I
evil.
think
There's no sympathy to give him.
we need more of that because even if you look at like movies like Marvel, for example, we kind of sympathize with the bad guy a little too much in a lot of movies, and
Like,
I
I
don't
know
really
they want
want
to
that.
teach the younger children empathy, but sometimes just people absolutely suck. And movies like this are made evident of that,
But no, I agree. That's why I'm saying, like, I think he has a good background story. I don't feel bad for him. I don't wanna feel bad for him, first of all. I never wanna feel bad for the bad guy, to be honest, unless, certain circumstances. I want the bad guy to be bad, and
Yeah.
he is awful and gross looking. I It's great. It's perfect. It's what I want. Um, who has a sad backstory that I'm thinking of? Is it Jason?
I know Jason and Michael Myers have like sad backgrounds where it's like, oh, little kid in a mental asylum type of thing.
Stephanie, please.
Whereas this one, look, and maybe the other movies explore his background, maybe like, Nightmare on Elm Street 8 or whatever, or Freddy's Return, whatever it's called, Freddy versus Predator. I don't know. I know they had a bunch of like crossovers and stuff like that. But I think like maybe at some point they dive into like, oh, he had a sad little background, or something like that. But at the end of the day, in terms of this movie, I like the fact that we really don't get to know a lot about him except that he is a child murderer and that he just needs to be stopped.
So, personally speaking, and I wanted to ask you about this,
Hmm.
I do like that the movie doesn't explain the dream situation.
Yeah.
So, how he gets into the dreams, why, like, it kind of tells you why. But I think if this movie had, for example, a lot of exposition, if they were trying to explain to us, oh, he goes through interdimensional dreams, I think it would have watered down the film a lot because I don't think every single thing needs to be explained. But I did hear, like, if you go on Reddit, I don't know if it was Twitter or something, people do complain about how, especially particularly in this movie, they don't understand how it works. But I
Yeah.
didn't mind it. Like, I didn't need the explanation. What do you think?
I didn't need it either. I liked the way that the movie is and stuff like that. Really my biggest critique of the movie would be in terms of like the acting. Oh, and overall the plot, I don't think it needed to have a lot of substance to it because that's not the main focus of this movie. I feel like the main focus of this movie is actually the technical aspect of it and like all the things that they did and the killings and stuff like that. So for me, it really didn't bug me, that it wasn't like explained more. However, I do kind of have a theory. So if you notice, the obviously he's a child murderer, right? But even though his parents know of him, because they're like, oh yeah, we lit him on fire, I always thought it was weird that he didn't haunt the parents' dream.
Yeah, I agree. I thought about that too.
So I'm wondering if maybe, metaphorically speaking, I wonder if this movie, like, I wonder if Freddy Krueger is supposed to be a representation of like a guilty conscience.
Ooh, okay. I can
Because
get
I
with
wonder
that.
if maybe since the parents, it would, if it would be expected for the parents to see him in their dreams and stuff, and they probably do after that. It's not said, but they probably do see him. So I wonder if maybe that guilty conscience comes back around and sees like how it affects their children.
Interesting. Okay, I can get behind that.
So that's what I was wondering because I was like, yo, if the parents killed him, why isn't he haunting the parents? But obviously going for the children might. But I also, speaking of that, I didn't care for the mother. I don't like how this mother was like, I gotta protect you, and then would just like lock the door behind the bathroom and just leave her in the tub as she's drowning and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. Also,
And I also don't like to like. I mean, she kind of had her comeuppance because she does die in the movie, like. But I did think it was weird how like her daughter was like, "Mom," and she's just like drunk on the couch. Did she
yep.
deserve to die? Yeah, I'll just say it. She wasn't being a good mom. Go turn into spooky bones and disappear
Also,
into the bed.
I don't understand why she wouldn't just tell her daughter. Like, it took her a while to be like, "Oh, that man you're dreaming of, I knew him." And also, I think as a parent, if my kid was not sleeping and having like horrifying nightmares, why not leave her in the hospital or a like, just something to help your kid. They were just like, "Oh yeah, we took her to the hospital and we got some tests done. Didn't go so well, so we just took her back home and locked her in a room with like bars on the window."
Yeah, and then the dad's like, "Oh, I want you to be home so your alcoholic mother can watch you and pay real close attention to you. She's not going to get drunk and fall asleep at all." And then he's like doing his things. Oh, I gotta find this murder. It's like, bro, you got a guilty conscience. Your mom's got a guilty conscience. She's drinking her problems away instead of taking care of her kid. And then you're just preoccupying yourself at work.
Yeah, it was a problem.
So I think is probably one of the more flawed aspects would be the unrealistic nature of the parents. Maybe it was realistic for that times. Maybe like when there was issues, mom didn't know what to do. She just grabbed, some Tennessee whiskey and just smoked on the porch. Maybe that's just how people in the 70s and 80s dealt with their problems, you know?
That's true.
So I always just thought that was weird. Like because I think about it, if I was in a horror movie like this and my mom was my mom would become the main villain. My mom would
But
kill Freddy
also,
Krueger and become Freddy Krueger. Like
you
that's
don't
how
see
that would go.
you don't see your kids' friends dying at a horrible pace. All of our friends died within like a week. That's not a
Yeah, and then they're
problem.
like, just and then it's like, oh, all your friends had died. It can't be you. You're not the problem. Why don't you go hang out with your boyfriend? You know?
I don't know. Maybe parents back then just did not care.
Just out of touch with reality. That what would be like, because even like I said, like the whole not knowing how the dreams work don't bother me as much. It's like, how are you gonna have parents like this? You know? And then also, is your mom gonna turn into bones, float down in the bed, and disappear? And then in the end, it's like the ending is a little bit off too. I kind of felt like the ending was just kind of put there because they didn't know how to end it.
I agree.
Because it was like, oh yeah, mom's dead, and then next scene, oh no, mom's alive. It was all a dream, but now everything is shot on a weird filter. I wonder what this could mean. It's like, everything already, like just from the scene alone, it looks like a dream. So it really was a dead giveaway.
There's no ending if you think
No.
about it. They just were kind of like, what's a dream? What's not a dream? Now you don't know. Figure it out. That's kind of what they gave us. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if she just never woke up. That could be a theory. Or I, yeah, I'm not sure because all of her friends are alive, by the way, in the car.
Yeah.
So it's not real. But
Yeah, so I thought it was very gimmicky. I really wish that they would have maybe they could have done it to where if they wanted to set up like, is this a dream, is it not, very Inception like, is if someone had woken her up and then, instead of just going like from mom dies, all of a sudden mom's waving out to the kids on the porch. I wish there was a little bit of a better transition. Like I think they could have made where Nancy was that's her name, right? Yeah, Nancy was like maybe in bed having a nightmare and her boyfriend's like, you were having a nightmare. And she's like, "Oh, what an awful dream." And then that sequence happens.
yeah, yeah.
So that could have been done. Also, that dad was not real good at comforting at all. It's like, "Oh yeah, you just saw your friend hang himself. Sorry, kiddo, go home. Take 5."
These parents
And
were
then
just
also,
not.
mom's dead. No one's freaking out at how the mom died.
I don't know. Like I said, maybe it was all really just a dream and she never woke up. That would be out of everything the most realistic situation because her dad, I don't know, maybe this man never wanted children, but he was just awful the whole movie. He was just like, "Yeah, go ahead. Go she's not doing well." And then he was like, they put bars on her window so she wouldn't leave, locked her in her room. God forbid there's a fire or something, which there was technically. Like he was
Yeah.
just like, leave her there, leave her in there. She'll be
It's
fine.
just so interesting. I think
Negligent.
that's definitely like my biggest downfall for this movie would be just the how it didn't make sense. Like even, the connections between the friends, they aren't as deep. They don't need to be deep, they're just friends and stuff. But it's really the way the parents acted and the fact that she's like doing all this stuff on her own in her own home, but her mom's there, but her mom is drunk. Maybe if her mom was sleeping or something or stuck in her own nightmare, that would have made sense. But mom was like, "Oh, just give me the whiskey," and stuff like that. So that I wasn't a fan of. Um, but let's talk about one of the best elements about this movie, and it is the technical features, the special effects, and everything. I will say that that's what this movie really stands out for, especially when it comes to the scene where oh, what's her name? I'm forgetting her name.
Tina?
Tina, where Tina dies and she's kind of thrown all about the room and it's just a bloody mess and everything like that. Like they
Yeah.
did all that stuff extremely well.
I mean, yeah, because like I also was thinking, who would ever believe that? Like imagine you're the boyfriend and you just like, oh,
Like that made sense why he was locked up because no one would ever like you're just in the corner of the room and there's blood everywhere. You can't explain that. And also like keep in
what do
mind
you
there's no
say?
other fingerprints except yours.
What do you a scary burnt man came in and did it? Oh, no, I don't even think he saw. He was just like, I didn't see who it was. Just like it's you and her in the room. What
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I didn't
my
see who it was. She just started like, but that scene was done extremely well. Like just the technical aspect of it and everything. I will say one of the most, the one thing I'm still like, how they do that was when she is like spinning in a circle in the middle of the air. Because I'm just thinking, like, keep in mind, like, if you're being dragged and pulled all across the room like that, that's gotta hurt, you
oh
know?
yeah.
So I thought that scene was impressive. I like the special effects with Freddy and his claws and how like when he would scratch the wall, it would like there would be like a bunch of like sparks and everything like that. I thought that was really cool. Apparently, I think they actually like attached his claw to a battery or something like that to actually get that effect. So I thought
That's
that was
cool.
interesting.
I
The
really like
stair scenes when she's
yeah.
going up and she's just stepping in glue and pudding, you know, going up the stairs. That was pretty cool.
I really like the body bag scene at the school.
Oh, that
That
one
was
was done
cool.
really well. That one was a very creepy scene.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite. And obviously, like, there's some iconic ones. Like, everyone talks about the bathtub scene.
Yeah,
As a
that
woman,
one's really
that's
good.
awful. Like, I take a lot of baths, and to think about that, like, how how awful, how scary. I have a thing with
And then
water too, so I don't know.
oh yeah, I get that. But the Johnny Depp's like death scene was also done really good. How he just kind of disappears and then all of a sudden like the massive blood. I will say they did a great job because I kind of like they did something similar for in the thing. You know, a guy falls, you know, to the ceiling and stuff, or he launches himself to the ceiling, but he's actually falling down. But the thing is like if you look in that room, everything in that room was glued down from the pages of the books. Everything in that room was glued down. So when they flipped the set over and they just had all this blood going through it and nothing budged, and I love that.
How do they film that, by the way? Because I was wondering about
You
that.
essentially take rooms, so probably that room is also the same room where the girl was like crawling up the wall and stuff like that, and you put it on like this giant rig and you glue all the furniture down, you nail everything, and essentially you just maneuver the sets. Like think of like a almost like a shoot, what are those cubes called that people play with? The cubes.
Rubik's
I never
cube,
was good at them. What are the cubes that people play with?
Rubik's cube.
Thank you. It's kind of like a Rubik's cube where it's literally just you just rotate the entire cube, you know, and it rotates the entire set. So
That's
for
really
that,
cool.
they probably just had him act in the room was stationary, and then for that big blood scene, they just flipped the set backwards, so upside down rather, and they just poured all the blood from the top, and it looks like it's, you know, going up.
Very cool. Didn't know
Those
that.
scenes are not easy to do, and keep in mind too, like the fact that at the time all of this is shot on film as well makes it even harder because there's no instant playback, you know? There's no instant, like, oh, let's see if this looks technically right. There's no instant playback. So it really is, you know, and it's also film cost a lot at the time. So it was
Oh,
like,
for
okay, is
sure.
this, and then you probably couldn't even do a second take of that because of all the blood and all the furniture. And it probably would have been ruined after the fake blood or stained, everything like that too. So that probably was just like one take. And they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, for sure. I was very impressed. It's very
Oh,
cool.
and also there was another scene that was really great too, where it was her bedroom wall, and you just see like the figure like press in on the wall, and it looks like it's coming out of the wall. That was done great too. There were a lot of great, fantastic effects in this movie that I think really do still hold up today.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still fun to watch.
For sure. So overall, Savannah, what do you think about A Nightmare on Elm Street, and where do you think it falls in terms of horror movie from this time?
So I think I enjoy watching it. I think it's a fun movie. Obviously, I think because of it's gonna be 40 years old soon. So it's a little
Yeah.
dated. Some of the things are not as scary as they probably would have been 40 years ago. But I think it's definitely a Halloween staple. And when you think of 80s horror, you do think of Nightmare on Elm Street most of the time. At least that's one of the first things you
You're
think of.
going to think of the top 3, and that's
Yeah.
either going to be Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, or Friday the 13th.
Yeah. So, in that sense, it's very iconic. I so I wouldn't own it because for me, it's not my Halloween staple. It's not like
Yeah.
the movie I turn on every Halloween. I watch it maybe every few years just to
Mhm.
refresh. But it's still very iconic. I would watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a fun movie. I think it would be really fun to watch with friends. Um, but yeah, good.
Yeah,
I
like
enjoyed it.
this is a good movie to put on if you're throwing like a little movie night at your place for Halloween or something. Like this is a good
Yeah,
movie choice. I do think it deserves its spot in terms of iconic horror movies because of
sure.
those scenes, but do I think it's the best one? I don't. So what is your rating for the movie?
Uh, in terms of like a Halloween movie, 8 out of 10. But in terms of just if we're it's a regular movie, probably 7.3 out of 10.
Okay, I can see that. So for this one, for me, I'd have to say I don't think it's the best. I think it's middle tier in terms of horror movie, especially for that time frame. Because when you consider the fact that my favorite of all time, The Thing, came out 2 years before, as well as another horror movie I think is fantastic and is extremely well acted, is The Exorcist. I think The Exorcist holds
Oh,
up still
and
today as well.
Poltergeist. Poltergeist
So
came out around this time.
my movie. That's my movie. Poltergeist 2 came out in 82 as well. So I feel like this is middle tier compared to
Yeah.
not already what had been given, but also just other movies that would come afterwards. I feel like it's definitely middle tier. So I would, for both as a Halloween movie and overall movie, I'd give it like a 7.1 out of 10.
Okay.
I think it's got a really good rewatchability factor, especially for those scenes. But overall, in terms of acting, I feel like
Oh
when it
no,
comes
yeah.
to horror movies, I would rather see better acting than it's weird. I would rather see better acting than a good story. And an example of that would be like Hereditary, where the acting is superb. And I think you can solely enjoy that movie because of the acting, but maybe not so much of the plot because there's a lot of gaps in it. So with horror, I feel like it's one of the very few genres where if you have good acting, you can still have a pretty great movie on your hand. And this just doesn't have good acting. Um, well written and well written for some parts and well done technically and directorially. But yeah, kind of middle of the road for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the official Purple Moon review of Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe, what do we have next, Savannah? Do you recall? I know we have another, I think 2 more horror movies coming up for September.
I don't I know at some point we're gonna do Twin Peaks, but I don't know the movies. I forgot. We wrote
Let me
them down,
pull
I
up the
think,
list.
last week. I think we made it up the last time we recorded, but
Yes, so we have 3 other movies coming out for September, and probably one would be like in beginning of October. We have Peeping Tom. I believe that was your recommendation.
ooh, yeah.
Then we're kicking it to old Italian horror, Suspiria,
Yeah.
as well as probably spoilies, but one of the best foreign films, especially foreign horror films of all time. Let the Right One In.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, so good, so good. And then for October, we're going to be doing Freak Week, which is going to be mentally taxing on me. So if Freak Week gets delayed, I apologize. It's because I can only do so much in a given time frame. And if you don't know, Freak Week is going to be a week where, and it most likely will be a video special where I will be reviewing 3 horror movies that Savannah cannot move her morals around to see, no judgment or anything. I totally understand. But I'm pretty much going to be watching The Antichrist, Solo, and Exorcist and telling Savannah all about it and giving my review on it. Because if
Absolutely.
I have to endure it visually, Savannah, you have to endure it audibly.
That's
That's
okay.
only fair.
I can
It's only
compromise.
fair. And who knows, maybe before then, maybe you can rev up the courage and things like that. Maybe, I don't know about Antichrist. And I definitely know I don't think you're going to budge on Solo, but maybe a little exorcist scene here and there.
Maybe.
Mayhaps, may not.
I'll tell you what. I'll think about it.
You
I'll
think
think
about
about
it.
it. The other two are a no, but the maybe I can
Maybe
rev up the
Exorcist.
courage.
Yeah, maybe it'll be where I'll show you. I'll go through the movies first. Maybe I'll pick a scene from each to show you, or just from the one. Maybe you know maybe there's a calm moment in Antichrist and Solo. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there's a calm little moment that I'm like, wow, this is well done.
So I've seen scenes from Solo.
What's wrong with you? Why would you do
Because
that to
I was like,
yourself?
"Oh, I wanna watch, like, a video review on it," not knowing, like, they had
Oh,
scenes
and it
from the
got graphic, didn't
movie.
it?
Well, like, yeah, I saw one scene, I was just like, "Forget it. Never mind. I don't even wanna I don't even wanna know." So,
Okay.
Solo, I've seen it a clip, and it was I don't know if there's a calm moment in that movie, but if there's a calm moment in the other 2, I will be willing to view that.
I will say, I know there is a point in Antichrist, because I was watching a Lars von Trier kind of montage not too long ago, where it's like there's a fox eating itself and it goes like chaos reigns or something weird like that. Maybe I'll show you that, who knows. But that is what we have in store for us within the next few weeks or so. So as
Mhm.
always, thank you much to Homeboy James and Sensei David, and also special shout out to Homeboy James, because Homeboy James just had surgery. Wish him well, wish him luck and everything
Get
like
well
that. And
soon.
from Purple Noon, we hope you are on a nice little speedy recovery. And yeah, if you want to know how to get, a little shout out at the end of every episode, check down the links in the prescription. I'm in pharmacy school. I'm sorry. Check out the links in the description. And yeah, we will see you next time when we talk about Peeping Tom. Bye bye.
Bye.